Today's guest is the lovely Katy Mason. Now, Katy is an executive coach. She's also a qualified coach supervisor. So she's one of our supervisory partners. And so if you're looking at doing coaching supervision, you can find Katy's detail on our website page under the supervision section, and also one of the coach trainers here at the Coaching Academy on the corporate and executive diploma here at the Coaching Academy. So I've got to know Katy through her being a trainer here today, and it wasn't long before I was really blown away by, her expertise, her real dedication to her own personal growth and development, which is, I think, the reason why she is the perfect person to be talking about this particular topic today. So I'm going to dive straight in and say, welcome, Katy, to Coaching Conversations.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm so excited about being here with everybody today. And thank you very much for that absolutely amazing, warm welcome. My heart is full of gratitude as always. So I'm very excited about sharing this topic that we're going to talk about today, which you've all signed up for, which we're going to be delving into Johari Window today.
Yes, Johari Window. So there's a lot there, and we hear the word Johari Window, and we'll unpack that in a minute, Katy. But for those of you that are here today, or those people that are listening in, that maybe don't know you as well as I have, or maybe haven't had the privilege of attending any of your training or doing supervision with you, can we rewind a little bit and just get you to start by telling me and telling everyone a little bit about you, a little bit about your journey to become a coach, and who and what you specialise your coaching on and with.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I'm Katy. Again, it's that who are you and why do you do what you do, isn't it, really? So, coaching found me 24 years ago in a corporate business. I didn't really kind of know what I wanted to do. I'm a mum to beautiful children who have applied my coaching techniques, and they're on amazing journeys as well. I've got pets. I love my dog. I love my cat. And I'm just very, very passionate. I like going to the gym, and I love walking as well, and socializing, being with friends, being with people that lift me up. I remember when I joined the Coaching Academy back in 2011, a long time ago, having worked in a corporate business. I worked for a large corporate telecommunications business. And in 2000, I found my passion for coaching when I became a coach. I always say if I had £1 for every time people said, what was that role description then, 24 years ago, it would now be looking very, very different to what it was then. In 2003 to 2005, I was instrumental to setting up a coaching culture in this blue chip company. So I've seen a lot of things that we can do well, and I've also learned a lot of valuable lessons in terms of setting up coaching cultures in businesses. Which now I love to share with other people because it's time saving and it helps them, get to that excellence much quicker when we put the right strategy in place. I decided to beg for voluntary redundancy in 2013 when I set up my own little coaching business. And so it's been 11 years. It'll be 11 years in July since I left that building. At the time, my leader said he'd never seen somebody as excited to take redundancy, and in general was quite concerned for a lot of people taking redundancy to follow, this is an interesting one, to follow their own dreams, because generally a year later down the line, that redundancy would have run out. But here I am today, 11 years later, still living my own little dream again. Collaborating and working with some great businesses, the Coaching Academy being one of them, that I just think is, an amazing place to train and learn. And, the collaborative community that continues, years and years later after you've qualified. So I think that's a little bit about myself. I work in Yeah, I work with SMEs, I work with larger exec businesses as well. I work as an associate coach as well, which gives me some great opportunities and has allowed me to travel internationally as well and find out how coaching's received across the globe really as well. So that's me.
Katy, that's absolutely incredible. What a testimony to, the growth and development in your knowledge and your skills, and really getting out there and at the coalface and making it work. And what was it that sort of not that we're talking about supervision today, but although there is a little bit of a sort of connection to the topic, what was it that made you think about then moving into coaching supervision as a role as well?
Yeah, nice question, Sharon. Supervision, as we know, wasn't kind of widely explored up until the last few years. It's becoming kind of more well known, and the benefits to coaches having supervision, because again, we're human and we run personal lives and professional lives, and we lock a lot in ourselves really that sometimes can cause us challenges when we are coaching clients as well. So yeah, supervision is kind of an instrumental part of being a great professional coach to me. It kind of highlights that people care about looking after themselves. Yeah, I did a supervision call with the Association for Coaching a few months ago, and the other coach that I was actually on the call with, I remember her saying it's kind of, my place where I go for my good well-being and, my mental resilience as well, where I top myself up, where I become, the best version of who I am again. So that's why I'm such a fan of supervision. Again, the global code of ethics for coaches, mentors and supervisors, if you are kind of aligning to one of those ethical codes, it does say in there that, a supervision should be taken. I'm a member of the Association for Coaching, and again, as aligned to their competency framework, it's in there again. And it's great that the Coaching Academy now are starting to include it, and I'm going to be supervising some of the students going forward, and I'm very much excited about that as well. I run my own group supervision programs as well, which is a great safe space where people can be vulnerable as well. So again, a key leadership trait, as Claire's going to be speaking next week, vulnerability is absolutely key. Yeah,
totally. And I remember speaking to Pam Lidford. We did a session actually here on Coaching Conversations on supervision, and I remember her saying, who you are is how you coach. And that really resonated with me when you were just sort of talking about how important that is. But anyway, I'm sure we'll come back to coaching supervision. And if you haven't heard Katy's podcast with the Association for Coaching, where she was talking to them about the benefits of supervision, I'd really encourage you to hunt that out, available on all of the main podcast hosting platforms. Now, today's topic, Katy, is Johari Window, and it's a little bit in my sweet spot, really. So I was so grateful to have you to come in and talk about it, because I love anything that helps support our self-awareness and growth, both as a person and as a professional. So can we start just by zooming right out? And can I just ask you just to share, because I'm curious really for that sort of headline view, what the Johari Window is, just at a big picture level, sort of at this first instance.
Okay, well, if we like big picture level, everybody, for those that are visual in preference, let me kind of share a picture of Johari Window with everybody. So I'll just share this now, for those that haven't seen it. And again, just maybe put a yes in the box if you've seen it before, just type yes in if let's get an idea. Saloni can perhaps give us an update of how many people know about this. Can everybody see that image? Have we got the check that we can see the image? Fantastic. So again, the Johari Window, how did kind of I get so passionate about this? Well, back in my days of when I was a coach in the corporate world, and coming to the Coaching Academy and doing my personal performance diploma, quite often we can look at coaching from a personal centered point of view, that pure coaching. You know, when you are training to be a life coach with the Coaching Academy, you are operating with the GROW model and you are keeping that person centered and you're going to the coachee's agenda. But when we get out into the corporate world, it can be very different. And again, just think about your DISC profiles and think about who you are, because as Sharon said, Pam did share, who you are is how you coach. Edna Murdoch from the Coaching Supervision Academy, you know, coined that phrase of who you are is how you supervise it. It's knowing self, and it is having that self-awareness. And sometimes that can be tricky. I don't think kind of anybody will say that they quite often love to receive constructive feedback, but we all love the good stuff. You know, when we think back to our kind of career days, when a leader's telling us good stuff, it's all wonderful. When they want to go with the finger in the ribs, as I say, it's not so great. So yeah, Johari Window came very, very close to my heart, because as a leader, an operational leader in a corporate world, I was kind of seen as more of that kind of people pleasing, that pink and that fluffy, that supportive leader. And yet there's always got to be that side of you when you are coaching, for me, to get the best results, to be able to turn up that tension and to be able to give your clients that finger in the ribs, so to speak. And in 2012, I started getting curious as to how I could develop that muscle and how I could turn up my muscles and skills in the coaching arena to actually challenge people more, other than just giving that support. And I came across this wonderful book, as Sharon knows. She knows I'm going to give Dr. John Blakey and Ian Day a great shout out today. And when I'm mentoring coaches from the Coaching Academy, I always say this maybe is for a book a bit further down the line, because again, it does break the traditional coaching mold of let's, you know, be person-centered coaching and let's, you know, put that finger in the ribs. And I realized that self-awareness is absolutely key. But like I said before, quite a lot of the time people aren't so keen on getting that feedback from the blind spot area. So the Johari Window, basically, in a nutshell, was created by two psychologists, and it was created by Joseph Luft and Harry, sometimes known as Harrington Ingham as well, many, many years ago, combining their first names. And they were curious to support people to get to understand the bigger picture around self-awareness. It has been used as well in counselling settings as well. And the top left-hand pane of that arena is called the arena. It's known to others, things that we know about ourselves and things that we know about others. I know that Sharon's wearing a beautiful kind of purpley mauve top or dress that matches the unknown area, and I'm wearing a red dress, and you can all see that, so everybody can see, you know, what they see. And that's kind of a little bit, when we think about the iceberg model, which I haven't thought about bringing in today, it's the tip of the iceberg. We see what we see, the very pinnacle. And then we have got a facade, the bottom left-hand side. And this is the area that we know about ourselves, but others don't know about us. And quite often, you know, when we apply for a new opportunity, a new role, we kind of will keep some of these things buried, because we like to tell people what we feel is safe to tell people. We don't often divulge, you know, everything about ourselves when we first meet somebody. We keep things hidden for our own personal gain, to keep ourselves safe quite often. And then we've got the blind spot part of the arena. And the blind spot is the things that we don't know about ourselves, but the things others see about us as well. So again, that includes traits that people might see about you as well, that you might not be aware of, that could very easily be holding you back. And the unknown kind of pane of Johari Window is the quadrant represents kind of the open arena in terms of where we're going and where we're traveling together. We haven't been to this place yet. So again, this obviously is the area of exploration of where we go. And the whole premises of the Johari Window is to actually expand that arena and kind of clear those panes and make your arena as big as you can, so that you've got good self-awareness of self and good self-awareness of others as well. So that's kind of that is the Johari Window model.
Wonderful, thanks, Katy. Lots of people asking about the book. Would you mind just reading out the book again, and so people can grab hold of that?
So it's called Challenging Coaching, and it, on the front of it says going beyond traditional coaching to face the facts. And one of the key things, the facts model is about feedback, accountability, courageous goals, handling and calibrating that tension, and also thinking about the system that we're operating in as well. Again, today, the Johari Window helps us explore, the benefits of feedback and doing feedback really, really well.
Brilliant. And the two authors were?
Dr. John Blakey. He's now doctor. It doesn't say on the book actually, but he is Dr. John Blakey and Ian Day. Yeah.
Lovely.
Two incredible mentors of mine that, have allowed me and left me to babysit Challenging Coaching, which I'm forever grateful.
Amazing. Oh, fantastic. And thank you, Daniela, for popping the details into the chat box as well. That's amazing. Fantastic. So that's a lovely sort of zoomed out view of the Johari Window, and I'd forgotten actually that it was the combination of the two creators' first names, Joe and Harry. I'd forgotten that, so thank you for that reminder, because it always made me smile, really. I've also heard you call it our personal window of life. Can you expand on that a little bit and what you mean?
Yeah, certainly. So again, in turn about getting to know ourselves in greater detail and understanding who we are, which I love the DISC profiling for that the Coaching Academy do as well. This, obviously that personal window of life, we're uniquely us. As my mum always says, when you were born, the mold got broke, and, we are who we are. But we're exploring our own strengths, we're developing our own relationships, and we are building our own way of communicating successfully to achieve our own kind of dreams and hopes in life. And, at the end of that destination, again, you shared about the 7th habit of Covey's habits. The first habit is to be proactive and to look into our casket, as he says, which sounds kind of a bit dark for some people, but really he does it in that way to say, start with the end in mind and have a look at that vision of where you want to be going in life. And, when I coach individual clients and teams, I invite them into my time machine and say, come on, let's have a trip and let's go to where that kind of destination is. We know coaching is a journey and not a destination, because we're always moving along that journey. But again, when you're 100 years young these days, because we're living a lot longer, it's like, what is that story you want to be telling to other people? And we have to create that compelling story, and we have to have a clear window, and we have to, be looking in our rear view mirror, as some coaches say, and looking out of our windscreen, which is wide. But again, we need to be exploring who we really are and having a look at dealing with those boundaries that we set ourselves, those issues, those blocks, but also when we're open to feedback, we gain wisdom, we gain gifts from other people as well, and that really does bring us into our own personal window of life, because we're creating our own story, our own journey.
I love that. So what's the importance of growth in the arena, that sort of the arena square?
Okay, so the bigger that we can get that arena square, the greater we become at perfecting our craft on building relationships, our own personal growth, being able to be more confident in who we are. It increases confidence as well, because, when we can actually speak out openly. I know when I start a lot of coaching journeys, in fact, there was one this weekend with a new client. I asked them to fill in a coaching questionnaire, and out of that, I asked them to put in what they see as their strengths. And this particular client left it blank, which is not unusual, because quite often people struggle to actually say what they're good at. They'll tell us what they're not good at, or they'll remain silent. That's my findings over all these years of coaching. So again, it is it's encouraging of confidence building as well, and also allows us to understand who we are and what purpose we're following in life as well. And self, praising self and being able to love self is so important. So knowing all those great things that sit in our arena, it's really important to start sharing those out as well. Because when you are a coach, your coaching clients want to see that confidence in you. If they're investing in you, they want to see that you are walking your talk as well and living your values.
Yeah, definitely. So ultimately what we're doing is we're looking to expand the arena, the bit that's known to others and the bit that's known to us. And I remember you saying at the beginning of our conversation about feedback and how we can sometimes welcome it. And that's probably when it's that lovely affirmational feedback, when people are telling us, what a great job we've done, or, whatever it might be, or maybe sharing some strengths. But I know that you've said to and shared with me before, to expand that arena. And one of the things that we're doing as a coach, I guess, as well, is starting to raise that level of self-awareness in that right-hand square, the bit that's not known to us as a coach, or not known to the client if we're coaching a client. So can you tell me a little bit more about that, and maybe how that affects feedback?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, because like I said at the beginning of today's conversation, quite often we don't kind of learn how to receive great feedback. We learn how to give it. And another great book that I just want to give a shout out for coaches, because I think it's another absolute one for the bookshelf. It's called Coachability, the Leadership Superpower by Kevin D. Wild. And Kevin only wrote this book a couple of years ago. And I saw him on another webinar, and it kind of fitted, because again, we're coaches, and especially when we go into the corporate or the business world, we are contracting with stakeholders or with sponsors, HR people, to go and coach people. Now, if people are not coachable and they're not open to receiving feedback particularly, how on earth are we going to encourage these people to grow and achieve those goals? And again, we're a sum of the changes that we make in the business. So if we don't obviously do a great job as a coach, then that business is going to say, have a dim view on the return on investment for coaching. And again, we know, I studied my MBA in executive leadership a couple of years ago, one of my courageous goals. And again, from doing, my thesis, I realized that we've still a long way to go on qualitative and quantitative data. I asked myself, the question, in order to be a great coach, is it essential, to possess, in order to be a great leader, is it essential to possess coaching skills? Now, what people miss a trick of is we've got to, what I call, design the relationship. We've got to contract. And I was talking to another coach about this morning. So if you are going into executive coaching, you need to be setting up really clear contracts, and there can be multi-contracts. There can be contracts with HR, there can be contracts with sponsors, stakeholders, and there can be contractors with the coachee as well. But we've got to agree to ask them some kind of deep soul searching questions, like, if things are not going to plan, how do I give you feedback? And 95% of the time, when I've asked that now thousands of times over the years, people always say, tell me as it is. But then I get kind of a little bit confused that when we tell people as it is, why do people sometimes show anger or maybe tears come? And it's about the person. But what we do as a coach, we can kind of rein it back, and we can go into this kind of cozy club place of, I'm supposed to be doing a great job here. And we can get that imposter syndrome in ourselves to think, oh, well, I'm not doing a great job if I'm making them cry or I'm getting them angry. But in fact, you're doing a super job. and that's because if you don't contract successfully, as Kevin shared in the Coachability book, we have to know that our coachees are in the learning zone to be able to grow. Now we have kind of two sides. We've got the learning zone in the middle, but to the left we have a zone which lacks confidence. And when people sit in that arena, basically they're not open to taking feedback, but they also won't challenge neither. And then we have the other area, which is those people with larger egos that will fight back. And again, as a coach, then sometimes when we get that egotistical client, or we get that client that remains non-judgmental and maybe a little bit passive, we're not pushing their growth. So we have to kind of contract, get people into that learning zone. So how are we going to be able to give them great feedback that they're not going to judge, that they're just going to take that step back and go, maybe, oh, that's good to know. I'll take that away and I'll accept what I want to accept. And, and I'll choose to obviously disregard anything I don't want to accept. So it's really important that we contract, and it's really important that we understand with our clients where they are. So we can allow them to sit in Cozy Club. I'll just quickly share you another slide to share the support challenge matrix out of the challenging coaching book, to give you kind of some kind of, in a moment. Oh, there you go. Can you see that on the screen, everybody? So again, when we are giving great feedback and when we are allowing ourselves to be clear in that arena, we are having to use two superpowers as a coach. And one is to support that coachee, but one of them is to also contract to challenge. So again, in my designer relationship, in that coaching contract, I always ask my clients, what does good support look like? What does good challenge look like? Because you will get that idea. I also mandatory disc profile them, which is great because they love it, because I share my own profile. So again, if I'm that kind of loving, I describe myself as a loving boot coach, but if I'm that loving boot, but I'm still that very high supportive person, being an I know at times if I've got a high D, I might need to dig in with the challenge. But I also ask my clients, if I was coaching Sharon today, at the beginning of the conversation, I would be checking in with her to say, how much support do you need today? How much challenge do you need today? Because again, I don't know what kind of experiences or days Sharon has had before. And I sometimes say to my coach, please up the support today. I need more support. But usually halfway through, I'm saying, I'm paying you for this, right? Dig the finger in the ribs and let's get on with the challenge. So again, we're looking at getting our people into that loving boot, high performance zone. And in order to do that, we have to go back to the Johari window and we have to contract that, how do you feel, an open question, how do you feel about me spotting your body language, your physiology, those blind spots that are coming up for me? And that's how challenging coaching breaks the mold using Johari Window, because we gain that permission to be able to be that person's mirror and help them learn and grow. And I love feedback, by the way, so I'll be looking forward to it at the end of this coaching conversation, because I know that, when I'm frustrated in life or I'm feeling in my biggest, in that challenge zone, that's when the biggest change happens to me as well. So I'm an advocate and I'll say, please, is there anything else you can share with me to make me the even better? So blind spot isn't an issue to me. I want to get into that blind spot. And again, the facade, vulnerability is one of the greatest leadership traits. We know that. And a lot of people will kind of hide things down, but you're going to stay in that inertia apathy zone. And that's where then we drop out to the bottom of this model, if you will. So the biggest kind of challenge is get your clients to live above the line and encourage them to dig into how you can best give them that feedback. I hope that's kind of helps. If anybody's got any questions, thoughts, stick them in the chats.
Yeah, do. I mean, just for me, there's so much that resonates there, that perhaps potentially people listening in may not have even thought about. And Daniela has actually popped it in the chat already. Thank you, Daniela. Everything comes back to good quality contracting. contracting with the client is so important. And I loved the questions that you've shared there around how we contract to be able to support the client, to start to grow their arena, to reveal those sort of blind spots potentially so that they can grow, and how they want to receive that feedback. Again, such simple and so important, and not just contracting right at the beginning of your interaction, but checking in. Yeah, checking in, and what do you need today? Do you need more of? What do you need less of? And the other thing that sort of sprung to mind for me, Katy, when you were sharing all that, just sort of such rich knowledge, is how if we don't do that, where we end up not being aware of is in that bottom left-hand quadrant of the Johari window, which is that hidden part, the bit that's that's not known to us about others. So there's just, again, lots and lots there that we can use for develop ourselves as coaches, but also to support the development of our clients as well. I'm just looking to see if there are any questions in the chat box here. There's one coming from Chris, I think. When coaching individuals, in what circumstances do you use Johari Window, and at what stages in the coaching process? So I've got my own thoughts on that,
yeah.
but I'm going to pass over to you, Katy.
Yeah, a great question. And, after exploring, this topic and knowing that I was having this coaching conversation, I've got creative over the last few weeks. You kind of make it your role to actually be using this. And, I used this in a group supervision session last week, and they were saying, oh gosh, it's just so rich to be in a safe, courageous space where we're taking time to stop and think, as a coach, how much time do we live in that arena, and how much time do we kind of suppress areas? And again, the facade, Sharon, it's a good one, because that is quite often where our limiting beliefs live, where we're not quite too certain, and we're too afraid to speak up and speak out about our own, beliefs as well. But in terms of, to Chris's question, when coaching individuals, in what circumstances do I use it? So, doing quite a lot now of corporate executive coaching. I was coaching a senior European director in HR last year, and I was sharing this with Sharon the other week, and she was bringing coaching in for a lot of other people. And when I kind of asked this lady, what reason haven't you kind of invested in coaching yourself as yet? She was like a little bit, I was kind of a bit afraid of what I might find when I start kind of exploring who I am. So again, I do the disc, and I do the exploration and the good contracting like we've talked about. But very early on in my coaching process, I encourage them to reach out to other people that they're working with on a 360-degree feedback exercise. They're quite often a little bit apprehensive and saying, really? So I'm really kind of challenging them and encouraging them. Because one particular client was, quite kind of concerned about how she was showing up to a CEO, and in terms of her confidence. And she came back to me on the third session. So I'd asked her to do it on the second session. And on the third session, she came back laughing, saying, you know what, I'm probably going to tell you here, Katy. What they've seen in me isn't what I see in myself. And I was laughing because her blind spot was this. Her facade was, I don't feel good enough. But the blind spot was what other people were seeing was the reason why they'd given her the job in the first place, because they did trust her, they did have the confidence in her. And by her kind of exploring that blind spot through asking the 360 feedback, she got a lot more from that. And it cleared that arena went bigger, and her confidence grew, and her trust as well. We know with obviously great relationship building and communicating well, we're building that bottom layer, the foundation of everything in coaching, that trust. When we look at the Lencioni, the 5 dysfunctions of a leadership team, it's it just goes without saying, the trust builds when we ask people. I mean, they do say that you should, out of 5 pieces of feedback, 4 of those should be of a positive nature and 1 of a constructive nature. So I always encourage leaders in business to look at spotting what people are doing well and sharing that, because then when we go in with the constructive, they're pretty much open, they're fine with it. We can do that with ease rather than disease.
Love
so
that.
I hope that's answered that for you, Chris. If there's anything else, please do put in the chat.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Katy. And I know what I love there is, although we've been talking quite a lot about using it in, I mean, you use it in supervision to support coaches to sort of grow and expand, you know, that sort of arena. You've spoken about how you use it sort of in leadership and corporate, but what occurred to me whilst you were talking about that is when you said about the limiting beliefs, and the limiting beliefs will often sit in the blind spot, I think you said. And what's quite interesting there is there's a little comment that came in the chat box from Hannah around so to what you say here, we access blind spots through feedback, so a 360 feedback, so what others see in us that we don't necessarily see in ourselves, which can sort of support or dispel maybe any limiting beliefs we have. And she's also asked, how can this be used in a non-corporate setting? But I think she's answered her own question without realizing it, but I'll let you expand on that, Katy.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, because again, we can all use it. We can encourage our children even to use it. You can show it to youngsters. Again, yeah, that what you said there, Sharon, was the limiting beliefs. They can sit in our blind spot because we don't realize they're limiting, but they can also sit in our facade that, you know, if we're kind of a bit uncomfortable about owning a belief, we won't say something for the fear of, you know, what that might bring to the conversation. But again, I encourage people to visit this, you know, just on a personal development element of asking them to select, you know, 5 adjectives or strengths that they see, you know, that describe themselves, but also, you know, ask them to give other people their view of what they see as well in strengths, because again, like I said before, that kind of expands the blind spot area again. Yeah, and also to ask yourself the question, how can I explore the blind spot right now? And I mean, for me, the only way you can explore the blind spot is to get really good at asking for, you know, feedback that is going to help you learn and grow, and you managing your behaviors, because again, it's only your saboteurs that get in the way. You know, my top saboteurs are, I'm a people pleaser, I'm an avoider at times. But again, you know, if we go with what we call the sage elements rather than saboteurs from positive intelligence, if we turn up the empathy for ourselves and just explore and ask ourselves the great questions like, what is this feedback going to do for me going forward? And we've got our vision planned. Then, you know, as long as you've designed relationships and contracted to only be there for the good of that person, then that's only going to bring massive benefits to your life. And that's triggered something else in me, Sharon, here, because, you know, again, in the Challenging Coaching book, we talk about, you know, the Emperor's New Clothes story, where, you know, the Emperor's walking down the street and everybody has been told to accept that this Emperor has got a wonderful new outfit, you know, which obviously is walking down naked. And again, sometimes we take on what we're told to believe as being factual for the sake of not being able to challenge. And the 5-year-old little boy shouted out in the crowd, "Oh, mummy, that person's naked." So quite often, again, you know, at the age of 5 and 6, we know this from Pam's wonderful training at the Coaching Academy on values and beliefs, that our beliefs become pretty set. And that's the fear then that quite often holds us back from challenging to bring it out into our arena. Whereas when we can contract to have great, I call it doing it in a confrontational kind of way, with care but with conflict as well, bringing it together for the beauty and the good of the great of us having a really open, honest conversation, and really stepping into that coaching place of being non-judgmental on both sides as well. And and it's a real skill, isn't it?
It really is. And I think, it just all harks back to everything that you were saying at the beginning about feedback. And because we've not been taught to receive feedback or give good quality feedback, then there is a little bit of a fear factor around it. And I can remember when I was going for my my ICF credential, ACC, and we had to sort of coach in front of each other. We was a little group of us that were doing it together. And all of this stuff all started to come up for me around, oh my gosh, what if I'm not good enough, and all of this sort of stuff. And that had definitely prohibited me from a lot of sort of networking, from coaching triads and all of that. So we've really got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and getting that feedback to help us to grow. Katy, what I am really keen to get your thoughts on is we've spoken about how we use the Johari window as a tool, and I really want to sort of emphasize it sort of being a tool. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that you don't rock up and say to a client, right, we're going to do the Johari window now. No. So just explain how you would present it in a way that is sort of like not directive and telling the client, right, this is a tool we're going to use, and we're going to use a Johari window.
Yeah, so again, I noticed a comment from Chris. So do I use Johari window in every exec coaching session? Not every exec coaching session, not knowingly, like Sharon said, by me kind of facilitating the exercise of asking for 360 feedback. I don't necessarily show my client that absolute model every time. But again, I explain that in this coaching experience, they're going to expand that self-awareness and that confidence, and they're going to grow in that session. And, I do explain that they will have blind spots, and I do, explain that they will keep things buried. So in essence, that is the Johari window. We don't go into a session and say, I'm going to use the grow model today. And I always laugh about this because back in 2003, as Sharon knows, and we giggle, when I was developing coaches with an internal coaching program to do 3 levels of coaching back in the day, I became known as Katy Grow, because wherever I went, you got GROW. I was rocking my grow. So again, it's not a kind of model where you have to go, we're in the arena, we're in the blind spot, we're in the facade. I'm just talking about it in general terms, and it naturally, kind of morphs into the Johari window. And we do contract of where are we going together on this journey? That is the unknown. We're in that unknown place, but that's getting into my time machine, as I shared before. Somebody's put on, Katy, really interesting. Could you please explain us another case where you use Johari window? And when it's in the coaching process? Well, like I said, I've used it in one-to-one sessions this last week. I've used it in coaching supervision as a group. I use it in training when I'm doing leadership training, when I'm running my challenging coaching programs. I use it in there. So it pretty much fits in with it is a feedback model, and a great model to encourage people to open up that self-awareness. It does come with caution, and we haven't talked about this, Sharon, and with it being 12:55, again, of course, vulnerability and trust is earned. So self-awareness and a good dose of trust in a relationship allows people to be vulnerable. Yeah. However, we do know that we can't trust ourselves 100%. So if we can't trust ourselves, we have to take a look at that person we're working with. So again, I'll be encouraging coachees to go and gain feedback, and sometimes they're resistant. And they're resistant because they don't feel that they've got that trusted relationship with that leader. And given that CIPD, I think, still quote quite high percentages of why people leave a business, not because of the business, because of a leader. I'm not certain where that figure sits, Sharon, if you've been doing it recently, but it was very, very high when I obviously came into coaching, and it's still remaining high from my MBA studies. Of course, I am not asking everybody to go out there and reveal everything in their facade. That comes with caution. So you will know. So if you think about the best relationships you've got and why obviously that works, that will be because you're operating in this way. You know, there are people we can be, you know, kind of open and honest with pretty quickly because we know that we've got your back. It's like your posse behind you. Yeah. So just that word of caution. I'm not asking everybody to go off this call today and go, hey, you know, did you know this about me? But again, if you can dip your toe, as we say, and start sharing a little bit more about yourself with somebody that you feel that trust is building with, then you will know. And in the coaching arena, we should really be able to feel pretty safe to do that if we're absolutely living and breathing our skills and competencies.
Brilliant, Katy. Thank you. Now, obviously, in 1 hour, we've only scratched the surface.
We have.
So if you want to find out a little bit more, Katy has written a blog for us. So that will be going live. Is it later this week or next week, Saloni? Tomorrow. So watch out on the blogs tomorrow. So Katy's sharing some more, and who knows, if you want some more, maybe we'll do a part 2 at some stage and dive deeper in the Johari window. Now, I'm going to challenge you all before you leave to write down what it is, the one thing that you're taking away. You know, what is it that you've found most helpful and useful for today? What blind spot has been revealed for you? What sort of growth area? And have a play with it. Remember, it's a tool like any other tool to support your own self-awareness and the awareness of your coachees as well. Katy, thank you so much. I'm just going to ask you very briefly if you can share maybe an inspirational tip or something to sort of take away for the people that are listening here today.
Yeah, so I've just popped it into the chat now for people to go away and maybe sit down after this session or at some point in the next day or two and have a look at this model and really kind of be kind to yourself, to write down some of your key strengths, because when we're on a journey, we quite often, like I say, are looking for the negative elements of who we are. But also, I've popped you a few bits into the chat there as an exercise to do. Share something that you perhaps feel a little bit more vulnerable about that is in your facade with somebody that you really feel the trust is building. But also go away from this session and to get maybe really clear about how you can actually delve into your blind spot. So it's a big question. What can you do to delve into your blind spot so you can be that better version of who you are? You know, so you can be that authentic self, be coaching in the way that you want to coach. Like I say, I term myself as a loving boot coach, and my purpose is to support and challenge individuals and teams to tap into hidden strengths and talents so that they can thrive and live those lives of fulfillment that they truly deserve. And that is my wish for everybody, to step over that workplace threshold, feeling happy, feeling healthy, and feeling part of something really special.
Oh, Katy, I couldn't put it better myself. I don't think I can add to that. What a fantastic session. Thank you, Katy, for sharing so openly and so eloquently this wonderful tool. And I hope it's inspired all of you as well. Thank you again for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you all again next month on Coaching Conversations on the 9th of April. Make sure that you register, and I will see you, if not before, on the 9th of April. Take care, everybody. Have a lovely rest of your day.